Welcome to the podcast. Nathan Newberry here, your host. I have a special guest, Meghan Walker, on our show today. Super excited for you guys to hear her story and how she helps so many people, not only in just leadership, but also coming from a naturopathic doctor realm. She's helping a lot of business owners with leadership and really kind of the frame of mind and health. And we'll dive into more of those specific things. But before we do that, everybody that's listening in, don't forget to like and subscribe. And down in the show notes, I gave everybody a gift that's listening in, everybody that's wanting to build a business online. They just don't know where to start. Or if they're looking at scaling, I got a video down below that just talks you through how to run ads, how to build a sales team, a media team, something that you really need to dive into, just so you're aware to know what that looks like to build a business. Again, as we dive in, I want to ask you a question I ask everybody is, what is high performance? What does that look like to you?
This is a great question. And I will say that it's probably evolved at multiple points throughout the course of my career. And maybe even in like the season of a given year. For me right now, where I'm at, high performance is to be able to give my full potential to the project that is sitting in front of me. So it's very much focused on the now and the decisions I have to make every single day so that I'm in my most powerful state. And that's related to health. The project in front of me might be my kids, it might be my relationship, it might be my business, but it's doing the habits every day that enable me to bring my best to the table.
Good definition. Good definition. I like it. Tell the clients just a high overview of like what you do and how you serve people now, and then I want to ask you a little bit more about your origin story. But give some highlights of what you do and how you help people.
Sure. I've got a few verticals in terms of how we support people in the entrepreneurial realm with respect to health. But the two principal areas where we are able to support people is I have a software company. It's an all inclusive CRM, marketing CRM. And we have an online business school for doctors called Clinician Business Labs. And it really grew from my own career as a former naturopathic doctor. But we support thousands of practitioners around the world in building out sustainable, scalable practices they really love. My clients got into the work that they do to help people and then realized almost by accident that they had to be entrepreneurs. And so when this wasn't an intentional decision, it comes with a need for a whole new toolkit in terms of skills. And that's one of the things we equip our clients with.
Amazing. You have gone on a wild journey. Most of the time, when I think of doctors and naturopathic doctor, I mean that's the lane they stay in. But you've gone into marketing and leadership and all sorts of different verticals and directions, which is an entrepreneurship spirit nonetheless. How did you get to this place? I want to bring us back to the very beginning, of this origin story of like how you got into all of this.
Yeah, sure. So I was an entrepreneur first. And, I tell this story that I had the first and only job I ever really had, I was fired from. I worked at a marina up at our cottage in the summer. And long story short, I ended up back at my cottage one day. And my dad looked at me, he's like, Megan, you are not just sitting on the dock all summer long enjoying yourself. Like, you've got to work. And I said, I will be sitting on the dock and I will work. I will figure out a way for this to happen as an all inclusive experience. And so I sat on the dock and I looked at, and I was a fairly ambitious person. I wasn't this like derelict kid who gets fired and really anticipates sitting on the dock. Like I don't want to paint the picture that I was this, this challenging kid. Then I looked at all these cottages on the islands and I went, oh my gosh, these people work so hard to be able to come up and enjoy their cottage in the summer. I bet they would love it if someone would clean their cottage during the week while they weren't there and they could come up on the weekends. And I know that's probably really hard for them because they're on an island and the average person who would clean their place wouldn't have access to a boat. And I had this little tin boat. And so I made these flyers. And, back in the day where we'd have to put a piece of paper in one of those plastic sheets that you could keep in a binder, I had those plastic sheets and I made these little ads and I stuck them on everybody's dock underneath a rock. And within 2 weeks, I had a full roster of clients, all these people on islands. And so they were on an island, so I could charge them a premium. And I would go and I'd clean cottages till 1 or 2 o'clock and I would come back and I would sit on the dock. And then the next summer, we had such a huge roster of clients. I had to hire 11 of my friends who I would drive around to all of these different cottages. And I would come back to our cottage and I would sit myself down on the dock and maybe do a bit of paperwork, but mostly just like survey the landscape. And my dad kind of looked at me and he went, okay, great. Like you had your cake and you're eating it too. And I was like, precisely. And also I don't think I'm ever going to have a job again for the rest of my life because this entrepreneurial thing is like, it just clicked in my brain. So this was sort of, where I started from this perspective. And then I was really interested in health. And one of the things that really struck me about naturopathic medicine was, one, I just appreciated so much this philosophy of addressing the root cause of a complex problem. I enjoy looking at complex systems, whether it's like economics or politics or global affairs, whatever the case may be. Health is a really complex system. And it was so uncanny to me that medicine had simplified it down to like, oh, you got a disease and we've got a drug, and like there we go. Like it was just felt like the opposite approach to how every other complex system was addressed in the world. And so naturopathic medicine naturally just satisfied how I like to solve problems. But as importantly, it was a healthcare landscape that would enable me to be an entrepreneur. And so I studied naturopathic medicine. I came out of school. I opened a clinic. It was great, but I was super clear on one thing, that this idea that when people have their health, they can change the world. And my real interest was, how do we maximize the number of people who have access to this system of medicine, or these systems of medicine, talking about functional medicine or acupuncture, allied health models. And it just kind of evolved from there. Every problem I wanted to solve in my business was, how do we give more people access to this? And I really quickly learned in my own practice, it's amazing to have a sustainable flow of clients, and it's wonderful that we can create a profitable clinic, and then also we'll run out of time. Like, I just can't help the number of people that we could possibly help with these systems of medicine. And so it just kept innovating the model in which I did business so that we could maximize the number of people who could be impacted by what I thought and still feel is a sophisticated, intelligent system of medicine that, as you asked in the beginning, moves people easily to a state of high performance with their
I think that's what people want, right? Is the ability to operate in the most optimal place. At least that's how I think about my health and my life, of like,
health.
how do I move through this world with a lot more ease to enjoy it and love the experience, but also be there. I mean, so many times, people are like at home and they're like, or on vacation, they're just exhausted and worn out, or they want to be with their family, but they're just not there presently. They're just kind of zoned out. And I wouldn't say that's like the optimal way to enjoy life or think about their family or think about their future. And so that's it. It's an interesting take. And then how did you evolve from, going from the medicine side to being an entrepreneur, a speaker, a coach, like you've really kind of shifted gears toward that. I'm curious, is that because of scale? Like you realized you couldn't take clients, one-on-one anymore. You had to look at a group session, or like, talk to
Yeah.
us a little bit about that.
Yeah, like I call clinician business labs in particular, I refer to it as my accidental business. I did not sit there and go, oh, well, there's this huge opportunity in the online space. I want to capitalize on it. I had my micro practice, and I was toying around and consulting on a few other businesses, and I would just keep getting calls from colleagues, and they'd say, Megan, like, I don't know how to I don't know how to figure this out. Like, what do I need to know to have a business that's actually profitable? It's killing me. And and the thing I think that's so important about this is that, and where there was so much shame around it, is as an industry, we help people reach their maximum state of health performance. That's inevitably what we do, whether like fixing a disease state or like straight up working on high performance. And our very model of business enabled that for ourselves as practitioners. And so it was this huge source of shame in our industry. People were like hustling like mad to try to make ends meet, but then we were telling our clients to pursue a different type of lifestyle. So I would get these calls from people, and they would say, what do I do? Can I pick your brain? And as you know, that becomes a challenging concept to scale. And so we just started running these the first Thursday of every month. Just come to our Zoom, just come, here's the link. It's free. Just come and we'll just talk through whatever's going on. And there's a whole bunch of people on the call, but like anyone's welcome. And then everyone had the same problem. So we just made an online program, and I had no idea. I had no idea how to do it. I just Other people did it. It can't be that hard. I figured it out. And so we just launched this, and it was sloppy and messy, and that's okay. And we just put it out into the world, and it was so valuable for people, and we understood our niche so well. And that sold really well. And then we launched that a few more times, and we're like, "I've like got something here." And then we were kind of, just doing our thing. But I didn't have a vision for it because it was an accidental business. And then I went, wait a second, like either you're gonna play the game and you're gonna do it, or like get out, because we've got other things to do in our life. And so I had this concept of like, there weren't a lot of masterminds in the health and wellness space. We could play a bigger game if we worked with people longer term and they had more access to us. And long story short, I ran my first event, And I had like a small team at this point. So I keep saying we because there were a few of us who were supporting me, and we ran our first live event. We called it Impact Lives. We sold 150 tickets. We had a big, beautiful space. I took a ton of risk to bring this to fruition, and we launched our first mastermind. And our first mastermind, we launched to this room, and I was standing on the edge of the stage, and my husband's appendix had burst the night before. He was in like the ICU at the hospital. I hadn't seen him. I'd just been messaging him because
Gosh.
like our whole livelihood was on the line with this event. And so I stood on the edge of the stage and I asked the room, I'm like, how many people have ever heard of a mastermind? And of the like 150 people in the room, 4 people put up their hand. And I thought, okay, I have totally misjudged this situation. I'm about to introduce this concept. No one's going to understand. And then I did it anyways because I had everything to lose. And so I left it all on the table, and I shared with them our vision, and we had pieces of paper you had to sign up with, and we could only take like 30 people, and we were going to number them. Anyway, I announced it, and the room went into pandemonium. One of my team members was in the washroom. We said, we'll only take so many. People were shoving their applications like underneath the
My
toilet
gosh.
stalls. It was
Wow.
amazing. It was like pre-online checkout. And we filled that mastermind. And then I went, okay, wait a second. Like we really, really have something here. We have something really, really special. And then we just kept listening to our clients and iterating and building something new or novel that just solved their next problem. And at that point, we had access to so many businesses and we worked with so many people. We could see what the most efficient path was to be able to solve that next problem for them. And we kind of carried on from there.
I love your vocabulary in terms of what I mean by this is you think in systems and you think at the challenges and you try to overcome them. And I think many times people have an idea and they just want to be an entrepreneur, but without thinking about, forward thinking and backwards planning. And I think you've done that really well with trying to articulate some of these things. And sometimes there's business happens like that, just like it just explodes and you're like, amazing. And those are fun stories like this to talk about, but that's not always how businesses run. I mean, I'm sure you've had some line in the sand moments where things that didn't always work out for you, or you had to really kind of rethink about and assess a few things. But that's the journey of entrepreneurship too.
100%. 100%.
I'm curious, are there some hurdles you've had to overcome with this journey of entrepreneurship? I mean, and I want to get your take on not only just the challenges, but realizing the importance of marketing because I think hidden behind every organization, you're a marketing company first, right?
Yeah,
With a
sure.
product of whatever your service or product is. And I think people, they have a many pitfalls before they get started or launch, or even when they're scaling and they're focusing on the wrong things. Talk about some of that you've uncovered.
Yeah, so I was gonna say when you're like, "Have you ever had any pitfalls?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is like must be like a 10-hour podcast." Because I feel like my company's called Clinician Business Labs, and partly why we put the word lab in there is to underscore for our clients, but also to remind us as a team that we are literally iterating as we go. It's called a practice because you don't do the same thing with all of your patients every day. You're constantly learning and iterating. It's like true AI, except this is real intelligence and it's an iterative process for sure. I will say one of the areas where we've had the greatest degree of challenge and like lots of little mini pitfalls along the way. Like every day we're learning something new. One of the challenges for us is around the balance and relationship between marketing and pricing. And so our audience, by and large, are not business people. They are reluctant entrepreneurs. They are doctors or medical practitioners first who realize they have to know business. That is a different client base than working even with, online coaches who are like, I want to have an online business. There's a real difference between I have to do this and you're the one telling me and or being the person who's teaching online business who has clients who want to be there. And so one of the areas where we could rally people and we had a big following and we had lots of people wanted to engage with us, where we had a gap and where we had to iterate a lot and we had a lot of learning to do is around pricing.
Mm.
And so our audience, by and large, as an industry, undercharge for the value of what they do. They're here to help people. They're compassionate. The idea of raising their rates produces like unrivaled anxiety for them. And so we were really clear on what we needed to charge in order to deliver really great programming, and that was a real challenge for our audience. And so what happened with our pricing, and continues to be something we have to challenge and butt against, is often we are the biggest investment someone has ever made in their business.
Mm.
And as you know, when you are the largest investment someone has ever made in their business, there's usually a disproportionate level of expectation relative to what you can actually deliver in a particular program. And so balancing out the marketing and the promise with the price, with the deliverables for an audience that is reluctant to be here in the first place, has probably been the most nuanced level of challenge that we've had to face and navigate within the context of our business, for sure. And we still have to iterate on that. And it's a lot of proactive marketing. It's a lot of identity marketing for our clients. And it's a lot of like just getting very, very focused and setting the standard that we want to deliver, and understanding the nuance of the client who actually wants a result at that level and at that standard. And so it's, we're in a niche that a lot of people want to come into because they're like, oh gosh, there's so much need. And I think what they don't anticipate is the level of nuanced understanding that you need to have with respect to your customers and your pricing for a few key critical reasons. And so I pull that as an example because I think experts in any field or in any niche, some inherent things about your audience. Like, just to bring this back to your audience, all of your listeners will have some really unique insight around their client base or their niche. And one of the things I would really encourage you to do is like just understand how you can uniquely speak to that. And this is probably knowledge that you take for granted. I took for granted this idea that one of the things about my colleagues is that none of them wanted to be business people. That's why they came to me in the first
Mm.
place. And so knowing that unique facet of them, if I really thought about that, what does that mean for how they want to spend money? What does that mean for how they want to receive marketing messages? What does that mean for how they want to be communicated to? I could have been much more sophisticated in the creation of my offers much sooner if I had viewed them from that lens.
I think it brings up a big topic. Like you're saying, like there's so many business owners, they get into it like they're, electricians, they're, doctors, and they want to just hone in on their craft. But they realize by accident that they're a business owner and they have to really take into account and learn so many other skills. And, the four skills that I see, at least in a business, someone needs to know how to market themselves, sell their service, do the fulfillment, and then also lead people and systems and automations, right? And those are a lot of skills. And if I worked in a job, I only needed one of
Yeah.
those skills, not four. And then, it's like, it's a compounding skill that they just constantly, and then you and I, like over the decade plus of having to learn from, trial and error of like, okay, I got to hone in on this skill,
Yeah.
going from naturopathic doctor to marketing. And you're like, hey, I realized I got to market myself to get clients. And you figured this out early on with, taking care of homes on the dock and, and the outcomes and stuff. I want to get your take on success. I think so many times, I forget the exact percentage, maybe you know this, of people that are doctors and they know what healthy looks like, but they don't apply it. Like
Mhm.
it's like the percentage
Sure.
of people that are like smoking will kill you, but like 40% of doctors like smoke or something
Yeah.
like something
Yeah. Yeah.
random where it was like the percentage of actually healthy individuals that are doctors are pretty wild. And so I don't know, I'll get your take on that for a second because we're health nuts.
Yeah, I think my world might be a little bit different because I'm working with not necessarily physicians who are, fixing the problem in front of them. They're not in that transactional model of care. They're very much attuned to delivering transformation. And
Mhm.
so, I think they're in a bit of a unique position. Where I think the challenges to health in my population come from is, and where there's room for acknowledgement is not, they are eating well, and they are moving, and they are exercising, and they're doing all those things that where they're facing resistance. But not to bring it back to like just the money piece, but to come there for one quick second, that's an area of challenge. When we look at the social determinants of health, one of the primary social determinants for health in a population is actually financial security.
Mm.
And one of the things that we see in our medical model is that the sheer model of care delivery, whether you are in a hospital or you're working one-on-one in a clinic and you're struggling to keep it afloat, your model of medicine is actually the biggest impediment to your health. And so we have an epidemic of burnout with healthcare practitioners across North America. And so even if they're eating well and exercising and having their protein and doing all the things that we value as high performers, the way medicine is getting deployed in our society
Mm.
is a massive threat to the health of the individuals who are delivering it. In a private practice context, creating a model that is financially secure for them, creating a model where they understand the money side of it, they are building leverage into their business. That's an area that I think directly influences their health, but we have a bit of a gap in terms of looking at the piece. Part of my leadership work and part of the work that I do when I'm speaking about the system at large is really coming back to the fact that our model of care that we deliver as a society is unsustainable. We take advantage of the health practitioners to deploy it. We're willing to push them well past a sustainable level of burnout because we view it as we don't have any option or any choice. And then for those individual practice owners, lacking that financial security piece and not wanting to look at it or saying, I'm not a numbers person. Not only does that create a sort of unrelenting low grade amount of stress for them, but it creates a lot of like unnamed shame in our industry. And I want part of my work to not just call it out so you feel worse about it, but to call it out so you know that there's some really great solutions around it and to acknowledge that you are not alone. And again, any industry has this. But I think it's really important when we look at high performance health to actually look at some of the low grade sources of stress that exist in people's life below the surface. When I was in practice, I worked with high performers. My brand was called Anthropology because it was the study of entrepreneurship, this confluence of business and innovation and high performance. And what I got really fascinated with people is where their low grade, unrelenting stress came from. And so they might have red light therapy at home. They might be doing like ozone and IV and like all of these things across multiple verticals. But if they were super unhappy in their relationship or then their marriage, or they had a job that they just didn't like, or their sense of purpose left when their kids went off to school. It didn't matter how many biohacks I threw at them. Like we had to address that. And that's one of the things I love about root cause medicine and the root cause philosophy. And in any kind of complex system is like you really do get to go and heal those inner nuggets. It's part of the work.
That's all connected to the mind and the beliefs of people in a lot of ways.
100%. Yeah.
So it's like psychology work, and I wanted you to touch on that a little bit more because I think like you're addressing, I think there's leadership for others, but also building something that's sustainable. Because I think that's very challenging for people to know what numbers look like or leads and, revenue and all like, and then just get into the root cause. Talk about some of the overcomes of transitions or transformations you give people with that.
Yeah, one of the neat programs that we have going on now is, my team said, Megan, we need more content related to money. We need more content related to this. We got to teach people more things. And I'm really interested in how we solve equations in our businesses, like back to like what's the product we're actually producing. And so I said to them, I'm like, I'm interested in delivering a more curated educational experience for our clients in terms of learning. And I am not interested in producing more content. And so this is the equation that I'm working to solve. And they kind of looked at me and they're like, okay, here she goes. She's like talking about things again. And so where we landed is we have a ton of content. We've been at this for 10 years. More content is not going to solve the problems. What we've done is like we've created a program where people can access community, they can access coaching, they can leverage content, but one of the most critical components of what we've just built inside one of our new containers is how we're leveraging AI to create custom learning experiences for our clients. So through like a portal such as like a custom GPT, our clients are able to say, here's the primary issue that's going on in our business. And we give them some initial prompts and things to work with because we have a clear roadmap that we're taking them through.
Yeah.
And then what we output on the other side of that is, here's content you need to look at. Here's the chapter in my book. Here are the KPIs that you need to hit with respect to your business. Oh, and here's your custom 6-week learning plan through AI, all related to financial acumen that just you need to know, that's specifically related to the outcomes you're looking to have in the next 90 days in your business. And so what we're able to start to do is not be in a place where we're like endlessly making new content that like addresses mindset and addresses mechanics and addresses these things. We're we're really, I think, powerfully leveraging AI, and it's going to evolve probably weekly how we do this, but we're leveraging AI to create these highly customized experiences for our clients that mirrors where they're at mindset wise, but also in terms of the mechanics of their knowledge in their business. And so I know it's not exactly answering your question, but this idea of like getting everybody on the same page with respect to mindset
Different. Yeah.
is really hard to do at scale. And so this is one of the ways that we're trying to solve that.
I love that you bring up AI because I'm huge with that as well. And I teach my team how to leverage it as, in a lot of ways. But are you creating like special prompts based off of knowing where they're needing? Like, how do you end up curating and customizing that for each person's journeys? Is it a questionnaire they fill out and then it gives them those prompts? Like, I'm just curious how you have it set up.
It is, and we'll probably evolve how we do that. But right now, that we have a series of questions that they answer. We have a series of questions that they answer with respect to like what their most proximate goals are. We've got some assessment pieces to understand in sort of 5 verticals of their business. How are they doing? And the verticals we examine are not just they're not just looking at their profit margins and their cost per lead. We're really getting into like how much time off are you getting per year? What does your personal income look like? I don't care how profitable your business is if you're not paying yourself, right? So we want to make sure that some of these core lifestyle elements are satisfied for our clients at the same time. It's why they're building their business. These guys are not they're not approaching business because they're like, I want $100 million exit. That's not their lens. They're like, I want to help people and I'm tired of drowning in my business. And so we have different, I'm going to say soft metrics that we're looking to engage in as well. So we've got questions related to these pieces. We've sort of benchmarked what that ascension map will look like. And then based on what the next level of that ascension map looks like and the 5 verticals that need to be satisfied to move on to that next level, we'll create a custom learning plan. So we'll leverage existing content, but then we'll also give them individualized prompts that they can enter into AI to generate their own custom learning.
Many of the people I know too, they're scared of hiring, where they have teams, but then they just don't know how to lead well. Talk about some of those pitfalls that so many people have with hiring and then actually buying back their time to be able to do it because there's so much that AI can do right now for us and automations, which we want to streamline to the fullest. But then there's
Yeah.
also the team dynamic of like, how can people play a part with what you're trying to build and leading people? It's a tough challenge for people to lead well.
Yeah, it is, and again, like, you have a small business and, like, you're like, "Okay, I have to be an expert in marketing, and I have to be an expert in finance, and I have to deliver, and okay, now I'm supposed to be the head of HR as well and know exactly how to lead people." So, I love that you just acknowledge that this is a highly complex role that we are filling as founders, and there's not one skill set usually that will serve you. I think in terms of this leadership piece and bringing on your team, ironically, I'm doing a 2-hour workshop on this tomorrow. But this is where I think there can be a balance of skill and systems to be able to support you. One of the pieces that I'm speaking to tomorrow is like, what does your onboarding system look like? And that onboarding system starts with, okay, well, what does your hiring system look like? And how are we hiring people, not just to have a set of skills, because skills are actually a lot of skills we can deploy through something like H or AI. But when we're talking about who we're bringing on, the number one most important thing for me is that we share a common set of values related to the things that are going to enable the business to grow so that we're working towards the same mission in the business. So I've had way too many bleeding heart hires where I'm like, I'm just going to hire the single mom who really needs a
Right.
job. And then she sits at the front desk of my clinic and drinks her Diet Coke and eats chocolate all day. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I do? We don't actually share a common vision and value related to health.
Right.
She's really needed help. And I develop systems in my own businesses to protect my business from me first and foremost. And so the thing that was most important in that hiring process is that we share a common set of values. The second piece that was really critical and where again I've gone off course is I hire people whose own inherent work initiative, the way that they the things they need to be successful in their work needs to be congruent and compatible with mine. So I'm a quick start. I like to just drop a bit of information and have teams fill things in. If you're someone who needs every last detail laid out for you, this is not going to be an effective working relationship. You're going to always feel like you're unsuccessful in your role. And I'm always going to be frustrated that you can't just take more ownership. And so, first and foremost, the value piece. Secondly, you as the leader need to understand what you need to be successful in your business and the type of culture and the type of standards that you are setting. Once you're clear on those pieces, you can create any kind of job description that you are looking for. But when you're working with someone or interviewing them, you need to make sure that first and foremost, these cultural pieces and these value pieces are at the forefront of what you are looking to create. And then from there, I mean, there's all sorts of systems that we can put into place and we have in place with respect to what that onboarding process looks like and their first 14 days and their first 90 days. And again, coming back to that vision and standards and buy-in that they have with respect to our business. And then I'm a big proponent of like, what does that personal development look like for a team and for the individuals that you bring on? And sometimes people go like, what if I spend all this money like now training someone and bringing them up to speed and like, oh my gosh. And my question is always like, well, what happens if you don't? Like, what happens if you bring people into your business who you are not elevating the standards around and you're not training and you're not putting time? Of course they're going to go. Like this is a very expensive cycle you're putting yourself on either way. So one risk version of the story, I invest in the people and they hopefully stick around because I'm interested in them and I'm interested in their success. The other version of the story, it's just a matter of time before they go. So it's, back to some of these concepts we've been talking about of like really getting clear on where you want to grow to, really getting clear on your own relationship with money and scarcity and the vehicle that your business can be to create your ideal life. Like so much of what we're talking about comes down to systems and how you deploy it in your business, but ultimately it comes down to leadership for you. And your
Mhm.
business is only ever going to be able to grow at the rate that you grow. And so if you haven't addressed your own issues of scarcity, if you are still identifying as not being a numbers person, if you are still resistant to this idea of, I don't want to have my own business. I just want to help people. Well, then of course your business can't surpass where you are at as an individual with respect to your own leadership. All skills and tools aside, being an expert in all these vehicles and verticals, the first and most important thing in my experience and the thing where I invest my most amount of time and energy is developing me as a leader. Because the second that is stagnant or the second I can't be, I get pulled into scarcity, my whole business is thwarted. That permeates the energy of our entire team. So, this is one of the beautiful things about entrepreneurship is you are going to get to evolve and grow. You're going to be on a spiritual, intellectual, personal development journey no matter what. So that'd be the first place I would remove resistance.
And there's sometimes those personality types that are just like steady Eddie, they started something, but they don't want to evolve and grow. And really it's like, hey, there's some of these things where it's really conversations like, hey, we just got to get really serious about it. It's like for you to be a business owner, you have to continually to grow and really learn that leadership key point, because if you can lead well, it's going to change everything of your finances and your time and, all the energy, all the stress that you wake up because you hired bad, it's like, or you have to fire someone, like all of that weighs on your energy and your emotions and then bring it home to your family. Like I think hiring is a big, big component of that. Talk about I know you mentioned this. I want to get your thought on this. I think so many times people, they hire for skill, right?
Uh,
Rather than the culture and the character that you talk about. And I think it's reversed. It's like, who is the ideal client? Who is that person that you want as the culture you're trying to build, the character resolve, and then the skill that they can either learn or that they're already skilled at. And like I think you kind of hinted toward before, like people hire backwards. We've all made the bad mistakes to learn some of that stuff because we need that help right away sometimes. But like people get it
you
wrong
just need
backwards.
skill, right? And there's a few areas where like we just need a developer. Like we just need someone who can write code for this. Well, like I'm just going to hire a contractor for that. And you're probably not
Right.
going to come to all my team meetings and you're not going to influence the culture of my business. I'm just going to literally hire you for your skill and you're going to give me the product of your skill and we're going to call it a day. So again back to this like lens of leadership, I think it's really important to understand and ask yourself, do I need this person on my core team or do I just need to hire them, acquire the skill and have them leave? Like I'm not going to sit down and if I've my brick and mortar business and make sure that the cleaning team who comes in from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. has like the
Sure.
same life vision as me. I just want to make sure that you're going to clean my space really well and that I can trust you. And if I really like you, then there's going to be an added bonus because I'm like just so excited that our ecosystem is supporting you and your family. But you need to apply a level of nuance to how you are going about hiring people. So when do you just need the skill? When do you just need someone to, simply buy back some of your time, or when are they deeply integrated? And so we need to be a little bit more nuanced and careful around who we bring in.
I want to get your take on life balance. I think some people have extremes, like there just isn't. There's seasons, especially having kids like we have, and you're making transitions and big moves, in life too, or it's like you're moving locations. Like, how do you go
Yeah.
about like really kind of building the life balance that so many people are striving for with financial freedom, time freedom, and then also just the impact they want to make in this world?
Yeah, it's funny because when I first started off, I was like, "Okay, this is very linear. First, I will create this like financial stability. And then once I have that, then I'll move on to this like time freedom piece. And then when I have that, then I'll have a little more time to go to like the gym and all the other things." And then I realized, no, this is a circular piece, and that I'm an entrepreneur, so you're going to win sometimes, and then sometimes you're going to be in seasons where you're like, this is way harder than I thought. And it was really when my daughter said to me, she is almost 14. She's like, "Mom, I graduate from high school in 48 months. In 48 months, I'm out. I'm like in the world." And I had this total breakdown because I was said to my
Yeah.
husband, I'm like, I have a low grade level of stress with my business at all times. Sure, I can go for a run, and sure I can like be productive and clear my inbox while she's at soccer practice. I could tell you all the hacks. But like deep down what I knew was, as I was like, I'm like, it's a little, our life's too crazy. Our life is just, see, it is incongruent in my value system. And like once I called it, I realized I was tolerating that. So I think, the first thing, I'm going to only speak from my own experience on this piece, is that I got really clear on the things I was tolerating in my life and what was detracting from where I wanted to be and how I wanted to feel. And she had an opportunity to play soccer overseas last year, and once we kind of conceived that, we're like, what if we pull the kids out of school and we spend 4 months in Barcelona? And we did that. And then once we got to Barcelona, we went, wait a second, what the heck are we doing in Toronto? We run a whole business that's online. We're driving an hour to her soccer practice. And when we were in Barcelona, they practiced 5 minutes from our house. We ate dinner together every night. I got up in the morning and I went to the gym and I got 4 hours of work done uninterrupted without my team because they were asleep. And then we got on calls once I had done the heavy lifting and I went, wait a second, what what would it look like if we what would it look like if we moved overseas? What would it look like for my business to expand in a European market? How can I have my cake and eat it too, which is the question I've been asking since I sat on the dock when I was, 16 years old. And we decided that we're going to go for it. We're going to move back. We're going to try it out because we can undo that decision. If it doesn't work, that's okay. We can go back to the drawing board. And so, not everyone, my point here is not, okay, well, we're all going to pick up and move to Europe. That's not the point. The point is we got really clear on the things that were very important to us and we put them on one side of the equation. And then we asked this question that I train my clients to do, and I've been asking myself my whole life, is if I want all these things to be true, what has to be true on the opposite side of the equation so that these two things can coexist at the same time? And
Right.
so, it wouldn't have been true that we could just pick up and go to Dubai. It wouldn't have been true that we could live in Bali. It would be true that we could live in Europe. It would be true that, yeah, we could rent out our house to offset some of those costs. Like, what were some of the other levers we could work with? And so in sharing this, I want to be really careful that it's not a story or tale that I'm sharing where people opt out because they're like, oh, I'd never do that, or my mom lives across the street, or whatever else. The point here really is to get very clear on what you want to have be true and look at your own levers. What
Mhm.
levers could you pull to shift your life to be a little bit more in alignment with what you want to have all at once? And this will evolve and this might not work out, and all of those things are true and okay, but we decided that it was worth the risk. It was worth the work of the pursuit to see if we could move a little bit closer to that, to show our kids what it looks like to make and take risks in alignment
Yeah.
with your ideal life and lifestyle. So it's one example of how we're doing it in our real life. But work life balance is challenging, and it will usually require that you make big decisions to really be able to tap into it.
And I think the I love that you're doing all of this, and I think it opens up the conversation about fear, right? I think so many people, they fear of failing, and like you're saying, it's like, well, if we did it and we didn't like it, like, you come back, like, there's not that big of a hurdle, or it's not like it's life changing, but in a way where you realize that, our junior high self of thinking that we were so, if we made one mistake, our life is over. It's like, it's not. Like, life is so evolving and changing, and the people that we think that are you know, gonna condemn us for those decisions, they're not even thinking about us anyways. It's like what we think is a fear is really not a big fear.
And failure, right? Like, they're like, "What if you lose it all?" I'm like, "What if I stay here and I'm utterly miserable for the last 4 years that
Right.
my daughter is living at home with us?" And that's her memory. That's her memory of what it's like to be in your mid-40s, is to be like a basket case and running all over the place and getting up before dawn and, like, doing your red light before you make like, I even talk faster when I talk about my life. And so, I think one of the opportunities here for everybody is to, like, rework your definition of failure. Like, really get clear on what your metrics of success look like at this season of your life. If my parents were a little bit older or their health wasn't very good, then this would not be the version of and definition of success that I would be ascribing to. So, if we're a little bit fluid and we're a little bit nuanced around how we view some of these concepts, and like you said, like, stop subscribing to this idea that people even care what you're doing. Like, just make a decision in alignment with the life and outcome that works for you, and you can't worry about anybody else in the process.
I love this conversation. I think it's so fun to talk about health and leadership and business all together. How can people learn more about what you do and follow you and connect with you? And I'll put all these down in the descriptions below.
I love it. Well, if we've got any clinicians in the house, you can find everything we do over at clinicianbusinesslabs.com or our Instagram handle. But I talk about these kinds of things. I'm like very transparent about what goes on in our life over on my own Instagram channel and feed. And that's just Dr. Meghan Walker. So if anyone wants to follow along our trip, our move to Spain and how all of that works, I'll be really honest about the places where we're winning and the places where we're falling behind.
But I'll put those things down below. Go check out Megan. She's amazing. I appreciate you being on the show and everybody tuning in on today's show. We have those things down below. Go follow her, go connect with her, and we will see you on the next episode.